Hey everybody, how's it going? Just gonna do video number one. Basically, this one will be pretty short. We'll just talk about how we choose the pictures that we're gonna use. So now that we kind of, have a little bit of an understanding, I'm gonna be on Unsplash, and then kind of just roll through some of these. Now, some of them we had talked about in particular that will work. We're looking for things like this. Things that are in landscape mode, again, wider than they are tall. We're looking for images that have a high depth of field, preferably, but not necessarily. That way you can get a nice parallax effect between these. I'll go ahead and just, maybe I'll use this image just for a testaroo here. Alright, I'll just put it over there for now. Excuse me. We'll probably end up finding some pictures that are maybe kind of in portrait mode that might work, but they have to be very, very high resolution. And generally speaking, a lot of these really great photographers, they really compose their pictures accurately so that the verticalness of them is part of the impact, right? I mean, this is a really nice scene. This would be crazy to cut out, but you can see that there's like a nice foreground, a midground plate, and then the background. But this is shot vertically, right? It's intentional that this is in portrait mode. Intentionally portrait mode. Here's another one, intentionally portrait mode, right? So that won't work for us. So we're going to keep looking for ones that are, well lit with a nice subject, that are shot in landscape mode, that are usually showing some kind of motion or something that could be interesting or compelling to us to try to do. So that being said, I think that we should stick with something where it's going to be organic in nature, like an animal or a human. That doesn't mean that you can't go ahead and show me something that might be interesting that could work for you. So just let me know. I mean, we're happy to make exceptions. I'm just letting you know what usually works out best. Here's a cute little image. It's high depth of field, which means it has that nice blurred background. But we talked a little bit before about the floor here. This floor extends from the front of your picture all the way back to here. And there's not much opportunity for separation, which means that the parallax feel of what we're trying to do may be a little broken. I mean, where would you break this plane up to have the dog on sort of a separate plate? Also, there's not really much motion here. Maybe you could make the tail wag a little bit or have camera movement. But in the end, it's a cute picture, but not very dynamic. So it's best to try to achieve some of that if we can. So that being said, let's just do, I think Noah had sent me a picture of a snowboarder that we talked about. Here's kind of like another snowboarder image. This may work. It's going to be tricky to cut out this gradient on the sky. This is going to be a little problematic, but doable. It is wide landscape mode. There's not much room for parallax here because these mountains and everything's so far away. And then we have this issue where not much dynamic action is happening with this because so much is stuck here, stuck here, stuck here, stuck here. And then the arm is free, but again, of course, it's covering the head. So not ideal. Let's see if we can find a specific snowboarding image that might work for us. Scroll through a few of these. Maybe we should do snowboarder jumping. Okay, interesting. I don't know how I got one woman and two men jumping at sea out of snowboarder, but there you go. I guess jumping became the king boss of this search query. Okay, here's one that's kind of interesting. Again, this is 1-point perspective, probably enough room here. This could be fairly dynamic. Again, the head's covered up, missing another arm. Not ideal, even though the shot is pretty cool. Here's another one. Again, no head, missing an arm, other leg is covered. Again, cool shot, cool scenery. Not going to work for us as far as making this dynamic. This one's interesting. It's coming towards us out of the clouds. Lots of good motion here. I don't love that this leg is stuck behind it, and it's coming at camera. So any motion that we have is not going to really feel parallaxy, which means sort of this left to right movement where things are changing in perspective based on their distance from the camera. So we're going to want to pick something that has a little bit more left to right movement on it. Here's kind of a classic dancer one, kind of interesting. This one's kind of fun. Again, a little tricky with the light. Bad for cutting stuff out, but at least like there's a background plate and a midground plate here. Related photos, doggies. Cute, right? But not much opportunity for parallax here, plus it's coming kind of right at us. So you can see that finding the right image is actually a little tricky. Now, not saying that you can't find a great image and make it work. This one's a little blurry, a little soft, but something like this could be very interesting. Again, portrait mode, so not ideal. We'll lose a lot of pixels in trying to crop that in tight. Kind of interesting. Whale's interesting. Jumping's kind of interesting. This one's pretty cool. Again, it's got like a bit of a close-up here. I don't, again, love that a lot of this is covered up. You can see that a lot of these pictures of people's faces are getting covered up, other arms, other limbs. The legs are great, but and the scenery is fine, but again, not ideal. So let's see if we just forget snowboard, just do person jumping. Getting a lot of the same ones, as you can see. This one's kind of interesting. Again, vertical mode. Some of these pictures are pretty crazy. That's fun. Levitating pictures, it's great. This one's kind of interesting, right? So here we have this guy jumping at his pregnant wife. It's kind of fun. You can separate this background pretty well. She's going to be static, but you could have him moving, right? You could cut him out and then have a little bit of motion on him. Again, don't love that the head is being cut off by the arms, missing both arms. The leg is cut off right here. So again, not much opportunity for super dynamic motion, but you know, should be able to maybe squeeze something out of it. But you know, I think you know, as we get closer on this, you'll get the general idea. I think often we'll find that the people are actually the ones that are the least cooperative when it comes to like kind of how we're going to get these images done. And then of course when people take these pictures in portrait mode, you're like, it's a great picture, but it's like totally vertical. I can't use it for video. So welcome to the struggle of the video artist compared to the photographer, right? We don't really consume video media, you know, in vertical and square format as much as we do, generally speaking, in landscape mode, 1920 by 1080, that kind of stuff. So that being said, again, really nice picture. It's a cool idea, right? We just wish it had more frame out here. You could separate him from the road probably. as well as the trees, and then maybe even make other rain, which would be kind of cool for an effect. So that kind of idea could exist. And this is another very, very interesting picture, right? But again, vertical. So you can see that finding these images isn't as straightforward as it might seem, even on a great website like this. If you want to do something like this, where there's like zero parallax, but you find a great picture where it's just the image and you feel like you can put this into really cool dynamic motion, I would say go for it. Just send me your pictures and your ideas, and we'll talk about which ones work best. Sometimes this really stark stuff can be beautiful and work. The parallax is what really kind of sells the like slow-mo style of it. So we'll definitely want to try to go for that. I mean, even this picture right here, this could work pretty well. And why could it work? Well, there's a lot of sky, right? So we cut this guy out of the sky. A lot of like opportunity here to like for range of motion. Even though his leg is behind this other one, you can still get a little bit of it. The arms, of course, are going to stay attached to the bike, but then you can have even some rotation of the wheels, the bike. The head you're not going to get much out of, but at least you could have this moving across this image. So that could be something that feels dynamic. Again, in motion, and because of the nature of what he's doing, we don't mind that, his head's not bobbing up and down, or we don't see his hands flailing about, because, this is set up the way it's supposed to be. So something like that could work. So we'll find like some that are like really interesting. Usually stuff in dynamic motion isn't going to have much of a foreground, so we'll just have to sort of assume that goes away. Again, this is interesting. I don't love that the arm is in front of the body, but at least you got a separation here, the head, the legs all separated. This background would probably be pretty easy to build and cut him out. But again, unless this is a really high resolution image, you're not going to be left with much of a frame here, much of a crop to sort of like build that out. So again, tricky. This one could be kind of fun. And this one's interesting, right? Beautiful picture. Left to right. You got some arms and stuff. I don't know how dynamic of it is, but you could kind of push the camera through it since it's one-point perspective. I don't love the background. I mean, gosh, it's so whatever. But interesting idea and a cool pose. So you could make something out of this. Not much action involved, but, cut outable at least. All right, so there you go. People jumping. Tricky. So let's talk a little bit about some of the other scenes that we can do. Some of those are really static images where there's going to be a foreground and a background. So let's see, let's do like let's pick a nice bird. How about a wild bird of some kind. Kookaburra. So here you have like static images, right? And anytime there's an animal or a person or a creature in static wildlife, you're going to get like some interesting shots. So I mean, like this shot right here. Good opportunity for parallax in that it's high depth of field. This background is completely blurred. The bird is static, but we could add a little bit of motion and life to it. Would be a kind of a tricky cutout for this barbed wire, but what can you do? So in sort of these still life images, what you're going to be really relying on is basically the camera moving. I prefer color, but if you found like a good image that's black and white, like this one's pretty solid, go ahead and send it to me and we'll just discuss the merits of it. This one's nice because it has a real clear foreground plate right here with the bird. Another foreground branch right here, and then there's a midground and a background plate, so we could really get a nice left to right movement on that if we decided to do it. Maybe do like I don't know, a barn owl. So some of these, like, again, very static. This is a nice little shot. It's not a barn owl, but whatevs. vertical, right? Annoying, but maybe we could crop it here and make something out of it still. Nice foreground, midground plate, and then the background. So that could work. And then also, what you might want to do is look for really dynamic shots like barn owl, like landing maybe. And remember also that this is going to be tricky because we're on a specific site. Unsplash, is highly curated photography type stuff. If I went ahead and went barn owl landing in Google and then searched images, you can see that all of a sudden a million barn owls landing show up, right? So Unsplash is great, but don't get me wrong, there's other opportunities to find great images even on the World Wide Web. So this is a beautiful image. This one could work really well, right? You got plenty of wing to work with. The talons are out, so there's opportunities there. It's also shot pretty landscape mode. What's nice about Google is that you do this and you can go to these tools and you can go to size large. Right, so now we know these are bigger images. Now they may not be perfect in the size, like this is 2048 by 1365. That's really only about 2.5, 3 pixels. Not that big. I prefer higher resolution, but what you can do is go to the tools, go to settings, and then advanced search. And under advanced search, you're going to see all these other options. So under image size right here, you're going to scroll down and you're going to go larger than 4 megapixels and hit advanced search. So now every one of these images that has shown up, we know for sure now are larger than 4 megapixels. So barn owl coming for a landing watercolor, right? Nice picture, but let's stick to real life ones. Maybe we just get rid of barn owl and just use owl landing. So you can see some really cool images of owls coming in, swooping in, that you can use for slow-mo action. Again, the ones that have their wings typically like spread really wide are going to be, sort of ideal, but not necessarily like perfect. So let's see, we can go here. There's probably some like resolution, 2560 by 1600. That's pretty nice. Right, so this is pretty good resolution to clip this out. Kind of a nice foreground here as well, and a good background, blurred background for cutting out and kind of building out owl stuff. So yeah, pretty interesting. Head, a little bit of an issue here, but at least there are some opportunities to separate wings and tail feathers and maybe the talons even too. So okay, so don't be afraid to use Google as well. Let me show you some pictures that I had picked and that I'll probably end up using for this tutorial. Maybe I'll do this one. I think this one is a good one to use. Again, we'll talk about shadows, right? And then I'll work a little bit on painting this guy out, so you'll see the process of how you would remove this. Again, this is dynamic, and we have the whole head, we have all the arms. The legs aren't going to be doing anything, so it's okay if we stick with this, and then we can kind of make that move as he goes across the scene. And remember, this is slow-mo, so he doesn't have to go that far. And then I was going to do some butterfly stuff. So again, some of these pictures are going to be great. This one's pretty perfect. It's got this front plate flower. I'll have to build out some extra flower here, but we'll talk about how we do that. And then we'll, have some flapping wings and stuff. But this has opportunities for some parallax because I'll separate these front plants away from this background as well. This one's kind of beautiful, pretty interesting. We could sort of fake 2 wings around the thorax here, but really kind of a beautiful picture. And then this one is like, oh man, this picture is so nice, but it was like decently high enough resolution that I thought, okay, maybe I could do something with it, with having all of these butterflies kind of flapping their wings intermittently. So we can talk more about how kind of that ends up looking. But so anyways, that's the idea. So that's pretty much the long and short of finding your pictures. Please send me as many as you'd like, 3 at a minimum. And once you have those, just let me know if you're like leaning one way or the other towards something, or you're looking for something very specific that you'd like to do, and we can talk it out. So next little tutorial is going to be me doing 3 of these pictures. So I'll probably do this one because it's a person. Maybe I'll do one of these birds. Maybe this one because this is a very specific style. Maybe that. Who knows? And then one of these butterflies. I'll do one of these butterflies. Probably this one, even though this one is so beautiful. This one might be a little bit more work with the depth of field and stuff, and the bokeh here from the image. But we'll figure it out. We'll pick one and then see what we can do. Okay, well that's it for picture curation, and I'll see you soon for video number 2, which is basically our Photoshop prep. Okay, bye-bye.